Welcome to the gathering of digital warriors and online trailblazers, where you are the visionary, the one who sees opportunities where others see obstacles. Each morning, you rise with a mission, not to exist, but to excel in the online world. You are not here to follow trends. You are here to set them. Together, in the Creator Collective, we don't just adapt to the digital age, we lead it. Welcome to the Creator Collective podcast.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day. My name is Justice, but you can call me Icy. So today we're going to do something a little different with the podcast. Originally, I was planning to be having a conversation with Noah, and it's just turned out that it just didn't work out with scheduling on trying to get it on the same time. So we're going to be trying to do that in a future podcast episode where we bring on Noah, and he'll be talking about the Creative Collective, well, more the Creative Beta program is more specifically what I want to talk to him about. So instead, what I decided to do is look through who I am, who is Icy, who is Justice. You may not know who I am. Maybe you do. Some of you do. Maybe you don't. But maybe you have some questions. Who is this guy? Why are you starting a podcast? Why are you doing all this? Who says you're the best person for this? Well, okay, maybe I'm not the best person. Maybe I am. But first off, to kind of like talk a little bit about who I am, well, I'm a 24-year-old content creator who is basically at the beginning of his content creation journey, but I've been doing it for a long time type thing. I've been editing and making videos since I was 14, and so I've been doing it for almost a decade, which is kind of a crazy thing to look at and understand because I wouldn't expect myself to be where I am and how I've gotten here. You know, there's a lot that's kind of happened to get to this situation where I am, what I've been doing, where I'm going. So there's a lot to be desired of what's truly possible and I've been able to do even in the last decade. So my goal is to not to go nearly as long since it's just me and me telling a little bit about my story, how I've been making this work for myself, learning more about content creation, what I did, what I've been doing, and where I'm going is kind of the big thing here. So one of the biggest things is I learned a lot from that last episode. Luckily, this feels a lot smoother already, just getting started. That was a much cleaner start to this podcast, and I really do appreciate that. So, and I appreciate anyone who's tuning in live, whether you're in our live on YouTube or live within the Discord community, Shapers University. So if you don't know what Shapers University is a community of creators who are actively working towards building themselves as a video editor or making some sort of type of content in the video creation and content creation space. So that's the Shapers University. We also are having the Creator Collective. We're still working on getting it open. The Creator Collective is an exclusive group of members of people who are actively working towards this, who are working hard and working together as a group to make something bigger for themselves and be able to help each other with our problems and be able to try and solve them as a group, then feeling all alone as an entrepreneur and content creator. So let's, just to kind of get started about, how I got started in all this. There's a lot of different ways I got started. Originally, I first started making videos and content when I was 14, getting into the idea of essentially I wanted to be a YouTuber or a professional gamer. I was really into video games when I was 14. Like one of the biggest games that I was really interested in was Call of Duty. I played that game way too much that I can kind of count. I don't really want to go back and look at the hours that I spent into playing each new game that would come out every year. And so that was kind of my bread and butter. From that, I got really inspired into wanting to grow and build something really interesting from a lot of different ways. I was really interested in wanting to also make games when I was a kid. I was really interested in how they all worked. And so I had all these ideas. So I originally did get started with making these videos, playing video games. I wanted to be like Ali A, if any of you who knows who that guy is. I was really into that. So I was trying to make like videos and content around video games. So my original YouTube channel that I started, that was literally what we did, what I did. And I did this with my cousin, actually. So me and my cousin were basically neighbors at one point where we lived really close to each other. So we were always hanging out. And he was the one who got me into playing this game. So together, we kind of were like, hey, why don't we start a YouTube channel? We both really liked that Ali A. We were both like, yeah, why don't we try this? So I was recording with my cell phone and of me playing the game. And I wasn't very good at the game. Like, I really wasn't at the time. I could be a little bit better now just because of how much I've played that game. But like, I wasn't very good. There's a lot to learn, and I was a kid. It was all for fun. Like, I was still going to school and having to deal with all that. But as I was playing this, I was really into like sniping, and I started learning about like the different teams that existed. And with these different teams that existed in the space of like playing these video games, I went and joined these different teams. I was really interested in sniping and getting like these quad feeds, doing these trick shots, things like that. So we were trying to figure out how to do that. So I was playing these different games, recording on my cell phone, was like, oh, and I was really liking these montage ideas and like what these things did and what they were. So I was like trying to make my own. I was literally making all sorts of different types of videos. Like, I went back recently looking over some of my old videos, and I was just like, wow, like, what am I doing with these? These are really interesting. Uh, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Oh, okay, never mind. That's something else. Yeah, so it was really a fun, exciting way to kind of go about it, and I was learning a lot about content creation, and so that's where I really got started with video editing, was getting into these videos I was making as a content creator, and I got to like 157 subscribers on that first YouTube channel, and yeah, we were doing all sorts of different things. I was always getting really excited about like building communities and having like, yeah, just the success of what I was hoping I would achieve with being a gaming YouTuber. I ended up doing a lot of videos, all sorts of different montages. One of the first montages I ever did, I called it the Epic COD Kills. It was such a silly little thing. Again, most of the footage was just on stuff I recorded off my cell phone, and was using my cell phone and iMovie for editing and like making trailers. And just basically, these videos are terrible because like it was just full of text. Like, that was it. Like, most of these videos just were full of text because I was like, I don't have footage for this. Okay, I'll throw text in here. So it was just me being really goofy in trying to like fill it because I didn't know anything about editing. One of the things that I really liked about editing was music. I loved music. I'd always be playing music. Music would always be playing on these things. And when I found a song, I want to hear the whole song in the video. Like, that was just how I wanted to go about it. It's like, I have to have this whole song playing. There can't be anything else. So it was just one of those big things that I really enjoyed about it. And it was a lot of fun. I grew a lot, and then I started joining these different teams, started working for other people, and was trying to join these teams as a player, as a gamer. And I got on to some sort of team. I don't know if I was actually part of the team. I can't really remember how it worked, but I got into this clan and did a little bit more here. Like, it was actually really interesting. And we spent some time looking into, I was watching one of the leaders of this group, and he was making these videos, and I was just like, this is so cool. You're editing. He was making these intros that were really cool, and I just got so interested in it. So I really dove more into the editing side and was trying to figure out, hey, how does this work? What is this? So as I spent some more time doing it, I got into going onto YouTube and looking up how to make videos. And at this time, I was really interested in the like I was really liked metal, like hard rock music, metal, so just really aggressive. And editing to that kind of music was really kind of cool to me, and that was just what I really liked. That was the type of music I listened to. So I spent a lot of time doing that. So most of my beginnings of like video editing, I was like getting into like working with that type of music, and I started learning Premiere Pro, and basically went and looked and found a cracked version. Sorry, no, I didn't actually do that. No. um, but like I was doing whatever I could to try and learn how to edit because I was using iMovie. I thought that was like the best thing in the world, and for most of the videos I made, were all on iMovie. Especially when we were trying to do like these commentaries, me and my cousin. Eventually, we got an actual like recording device so we could actually record the gameplay we were doing. So it was just a lot of like work and build up for it. So it's always interesting to find where anything's happening. So yeah, I spent a lot of time doing that. That's where I really got started. And then then I started shifting a little bit more. I tried starting my own teams, learned more about editing, was just constantly doing this. So for a long time, I was just doing these Call of Duty montages, trying different things. And these edits were very basic. They weren't very like complex. They were trying to be like synced to the music and things like that. And I didn't really know much about like how to make an edit flow to go from one clip to another really smoothly. So I think it took about like 2 years of me doing this. And this was all on my free time while I was off of school. I would just be doing this. I was also recording some vlogs and talking about the different games that were coming out, what I was interested in. So I spent a lot of time just building and growing and trying to understand it and just having fun. It was just fun for me. So as it all kept going, I eventually was getting really interested more and more. I was trying to figure out like how can I also use this? I also wanted to make video games. That was a big thing. I was really interested in that. Like I had dreams of being a game developer. I was like, I'm gonna make this game. I have a nice idea for this game. There was one where I was like, it was supposed to be with aliens, and like I was like this war game, very similar to Call of Duty, but with aliens. And yeah, like I was just very creative as a kid, and I was just always wanting to make games. I tried doing all sorts of different aspects of it. I tried learning animation. So, like, when I got into high school, when I had been building these YouTube channels, I then started another one where it was a rebrand essentially. So I started from scratch, completely brand new. I just didn't want to keep using the old one just because of all the things we were doing with it. And I was like, I don't like the name anymore. I don't want to do this. And this was also at the time before you could actually change. You basically, you picked your name, you stuck with that name. That's the name you have forever. So you had to actually make a new channel if you wanted to do anything else. And because I was starting these different teams, I kept making channels. So I just kept making emails and channels, just constantly just trying to do this, but like starting from scratch basically every single time. But when I did my rebrand, I rebranded my name. So originally we started off as the Beast Gamers 14 or 13. No, yeah, the Beast Gamers 13 was our original starting name. And then my name was like Mezzo, and my cousin's name was Slasher. So some of the things we started doing were like we're Mezzo and Slasher. And then eventually, as I was getting further into it, I changed my name to It's Insane. And because I realized when I was really trying to do more editing, I found out there's another editor out there who was like had the only difference was his name was Mez and my name was Mezzo, and I was like, I don't want to get confused with this guy. So I changed my name to Insane, spelt incorrectly, of course, because again, I was trying to stand out, trying to do something different. And this is when I was starting to change my names and my gamer tags. But also I was making more videos and I was making different types of content. I was really into these different games. We got into Destiny. Destiny was like a hot game that was coming out. I was trying to make content around that. Again, like I it seemed like I was always wanting to be a YouTuber or telling a story or something. So as I was trying to do that, I was also really interested in building games. So I eventually got into doing like digital art. So when I got into high school, I took a film class. I also had an animation class. And in the animation course, I started learning how to make models, started like building and creating different um, types of characters. I was drawing a lot. I wasn't a very good drawer. I kind of sucked at it. So I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was building it up and trying to learn more about it and trying to figure out the best way to do it. And I was always trying these different tools. Like I first started with Unity. We were trying to make a game. Me and my cousin. My cousin was like, "Oh, I just found this free gaming engine. We can make a game." So we were always trying these things. So it was basically me and my cousin constantly trying to do these sorts of things together and building something up. And it kind of just fell apart a little bit because we didn't really know what we were doing. We were kids. So, and trying to like understand, it's like I didn't want to learn anything to do with coding. I absolutely was like, oh, I don't want to learn coding. So like I was more of the art side and I just wanted to make the props and like make things, but I also didn't want to spend the time making them either because if you try anything to do with 3D animation or even making models, it takes a really long time to build when you don't know what you're doing. There's so much to be done in the 3D space and you're trying to learn the program. There's so many different things. And because I was learning this all on my own, I never had like a specific course. And when I was in high school, we started taking this course and I was trying to learn how to do it and I was getting better at it and getting faster and more fluid. But then I started finding other programs that I liked a little bit better because it made it easier. I eventually got like a drawing tablet so I could like try and use my tablet and a digital pen to then start doing sculpting. I was really into that. So some of the videos I was making for my YouTube channel ended up being me showing my skills or showing how I did something, and it was all pre-recorded, so I never recorded myself. That I was like I recorded myself, but I wasn't recording myself. So it was weird to kind of look at that I did all these different things. I'm like, I'm trying to record myself. I'm trying this. I'm trying that. So there's all different sorts of aspects of it, which was really interesting. So eventually, then I moved on to the next thing. And so when I was trying to do this, I was also taking a film course in high school. I only took it between my first year and my last year in high school, mostly because like I was more into the animation and game design. That was my main idea of like that's where I want to go. I was very focused on that. So eventually, I ended up not doing that. It actually didn't work out, which was kind of disappointing at the same time, just because I didn't really know what I was doing and it just didn't really work out. But I was trying to go to a school which I was really interested in doing. And when I went to the school and applied, I actually didn't get accepted. And they told me why, which was actually really nice. They gave me a good reason. It was a small little school, but they had a very high reputation. So like people who get in, like they're good. They're good at this. So that was the biggest thing too, is like it restricted me in that same sense because I wasn't at the level they were wanting me to be at to get started. So, and a lot of it was coming from my drawing skill. Like I had spent a lot of time in like 3D space making these different things, but there's a lot of things that I didn't really know about, like the different details. But I did end up like going to the Vancouver Film School, which had like this 1 week intensive program where I went and actually got to do and learn a little bit more about animation and 3D space and visual effects, and was trying these different tools. And that was actually a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I made an animation which was like of a ball bouncing, and I was actually blown away by the different animations I had learned because I was like, wow, this actually looks professional. So I had like a demo reel of like all this footage and all these animations that I did from high school and also doing this. But when I got declined by that school that I really wanted to go to, because I didn't want to go to Vancouver Film School, I heard tons of bad stories about them. And that like in the industry, just no one really liked, well, the film production program, not so much the animation. But then I was just like, when I got declined from the school I wanted to go to, because the one I wanted to go to, just they produced high quality, like super high quality artists. And that's what I was more interested in. I wanted to be in that high quality artist. Like I wanted things to look good. I was very much like a perfectionist. Like things need to look good the way I hope it to be, and things like that. So there was a lot to be said on that, which was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. Spent a lot of time doing that. And then it just didn't really work out. So when I got declined, I ended up going to my plan B, which was film. I was very much interested in film from also just watching movies. I was always very interested in like learning about behind the scenes, understanding like, oh, how did they get started? Like, how do these things get made? And I spent some time learning more about filmmaking and just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the idea of how cameras worked and just like how making movies were. Like it just was very similar to the whole idea of me wanting to make video games. It just fit in that same genre and area. So I spent a lot of time learning more about it and just watching behind the scenes footage and like the back behind the scenes of like what it was like actually making these things. And I just thought it was so cool when you got to see like, oh, they're like doing some explosions and things like that. So I ended up going into the film industry. So I applied for a film school, got accepted, and after I graduated high school, that was the first thing I went and did. I went and spent time as a filmmaker and was making a bunch of movies. I spent a lot of time making movies. And throughout film school, I went and tried as much as I could. And this is something that's really interesting. And this is why I know for me, who I'm very much a grinder, I'm very much the type of person who goes and works hard. And when it's something I want to do, I go out and do it and I make it happen. So with film school, I went into film school and I was always there on time early. I was actually constantly working on script writing. I was always writing a script. I was always so interested in what I was doing and I was constantly working on it. So like there were days where that's all I was doing. I was just like I'd go to school and I lived like an hour, like about half an hour from the school, but for where I lived, because I lived in a big city, I lived in a smaller part of the big city, which was a little further out, and it would take me over an hour just to get to where my school was by taking the transit. So, and being a broke student, I had very little money to really just go and make that work. Like I had a very set budget, and I wasn't thinking about making money at the time. Like this wasn't something I was even aware of. So it was more focused on this is my passion. I was really interested in this. I was making these videos. I was making content for a long time. And then I was really into film and I was learning about editing and going all through the different aspects of it, which was a lot of fun. And it got very interesting and I spent a lot of time doing it and we got to a really cool point. So I made like a bunch of different short films in film school and then started going towards after graduating film school, after making all this content, making all these movies, I decided, well, I not decided, part of it was to start working in the film industry. And I was still wanting to make these things, make these movies, these videos. And so as I spent some time in it, I started working in the film industry. I first started off as a production assistant for the locations team. And the way it worked in the area I lived in, that's really the way you got started working in film. Like there were ways, like if you knew someone who works in the industry, you can get started in other departments. But I had to start working as a production assistant in as a locations production assistant. And a locations production assistant in the area I lived in is the longest work days you will ever work. And all you do is mostly nothing. And so the days just feel super, super long. So I was working 15 hours a day as a production assistant. And that's all I did for a year, like weeks. So, and most of it was, it'd be 3 weeks at a time. First 3 weeks, I'd be going hard, 15 hours a day, just go, 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 go. And but it wasn't even like it was that go 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 momentum. The only difference was it was most of my day was stand here, repeat these few things that are said on the radio, and be on the lookout for people. So and be aware of where things are. You need to know where the bathrooms are, where garbage cans are, emptying trash, like basically glorified security guards with also having security on some of them. Like it wasn't my favorite thing to do. And I spent a year doing that. There was one point where I was like, okay, you know what? I actually like this because I got to be in a more leadership role where I was in charge of people and actually had more to do and more tasks to do during the day of filming. But it was still just not my favorite thing. It was just not the best area for me to get started. And I was just really disappointed by it. And it was just a lot of time to be spending basically doing nothing. So it worked out, but I was just a little disappointed about it and how it all really stood out. But it was interesting. Eventually, I did get to move out of it. What I was really interested in is I wanted to be a director, photographer. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to make movies. So I was more interested in the other departments that did more of the making of, not the standing around and doing nothing. So eventually, I did actually grow into being a lighting technician. And as a lighting technician, it's very different. So that's where I really get to start seeing some more stuff because I was doing lighting technician and also a grip. And both of those roles work hand in hand, but a lot of it is shaping light. It deals with light. And we're playing around with light, shaping it, and dealing with power. And it was a lot of fun. I actually was really interested in it. And I got really into the process of playing with these different light sources, these different tools. They did different things. They could do cool different effects. And when you see these things on camera and the results of what you did, like you actually could see tangible results of what you're doing over working as a production assistant, where all you did was like tell people where things were and just let everyone else know that we were shooting the movie or whatever. Like it was like in comparison, they're two very different roles in the industry, and you see different things from it. Like, don't get me wrong, there were parts of like what being a production assistant was like stopping people from walking into the camera frame during recording. That way they're not like seeing some random person that's not supposed to be in the shot. But like it was really one of those areas in my working career that I was really interested in. And it was also for me what made sense to be my path to be a director of photography because I was working with lights. That was where I really wanted to go. I was really interested with cameras and making the things and telling stories. So as working in these as a lighting technician, I was hoping that would take me there. And the biggest thing that I had to learn was especially and now where I am now with creating content is you can't rely on that to be the way. There's so many different ways to actually grow and find yourself being able to see some success from it. So for me, like trying to get in as a director of photography was going to take years if I did it that way. It was going to take years to get to a point where I could actually make it as a director of photography. I had to network with people. I had to learn how to network with people. And at the time, I really didn't understand that. I struggled with that. I struggled a lot with, interacting with the people around me. Most of it was I came in and did a job and that's all I did. That's all I was there for. That's all I spent my time thinking about. I was always thinking about the other projects I wanted to do. I met a friend and we ended up making a bunch of short films together. But when I was working with him on those, a lot of it was me not being in the role I wanted to be. I was still like at that same role that I was already doing. I was getting to try more like in a different role where I was more dealing with the cameras and working with people who were directors of photography. So I was a camera assistant for some of my buddies' videos and films. So I was learning how to slate and deal with, the different lenses and how to actually build camera rigs. So I spent a lot of time learning it, and I got to do that with these free projects. And most of the thing, the film industry is people think there's money in it, and there is money in it. Don't get me wrong, but when you're a beginner and you're just getting started as a filmmaker, like, and you don't know anything, like, it just doesn't grow. Like when you're making movies and you're hoping it goes viral, but I really did. I was super naive at the time and there's still so much for me to learn and grow from. So like I spent a lot of time learning it and I had all these ideas while I was also working on these projects. But most of the time I wasn't actually the one making any of the videos. Eventually I got in with my buddy. He eventually started letting me be his director of photography.
And we started doing some more projects together. I wrote some stuff. I worked with him more closely on some of his projects. But he would also, it was it was an area for me to learn to work with people too. I was always very good at working with everyone else, but like my friend, I was struggling a lot actually with and trying to like get these videos to work because I was trying to understand how to actually work with him because we were friends and we were also at one point living together. So it got like these two things were basically the same thing. We were always talking about movies, we were always watching movies, and working in the film industry. One of the biggest things that I loved about it was super interesting. There's always these cool things we got to do, whether it was an explosion, having ninjas doing these crazy stunts, having these crazy tools we were using to light a scene, doing explosions, meeting actors, working with people. So like it was super interesting, but it was just one of those areas that I really deeply struggled with and trying to understand it and understand to work with people. I really didn't understand a lot of areas in my life, and it grew for I had to learn something really important. And one of the biggest things I had to learn was the fact that I had to become something better. So, near the end of me working in the film industry, because I no longer do it, I realized it took me about a year to kind of start getting myself in better shape. Working in the film industry, because you're working these long hours. I was working 12 hours a day. This didn't include travel time sometimes. Sometimes I'd be driving an hour to an hour and a half to 30 minutes, depending on where we were shooting. But the biggest thing is I spent a lot of time working or not at home or being in the best shape because like even when you're working in film, you basically sit around a lot too. There's this term that happens in the film industry, and it's very common in a lot of industries as well. It's called hurry up and wait. So we spent a lot of time where it'd be like, go, 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 go. Okay, now stop and wait until we do that again. So that's the whole film industry right there for you. When you're making a movie, it's get this thing done right now. And then all of a sudden, okay, we're good. Take a break. And because of that, there was a lot of time where I was just sitting around eating food and that's it. I wasn't really moving that much. And like I was really out of shape. Like throughout the whole time I was going in film industry, like I was really out of shape and I never thought about exercise. I never really liked to exercise. Growing up as a kid, I hated it. I just didn't want to do it. And eventually I started exercising and I was like, hey, I can't just be doing this all the time. I can't just be sitting around. So when I was living with my friend, I tried to start working out and I was trying to do it at home too, because I was like, I got to do body weight. I got to do something. And, you start seeing some changes and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, things are starting to change a little bit. And even just noticing how I felt afterwards and doing these exercises, but I couldn't stay disciplined. That was the hardest part. Like with working in film, it's so easy because I was working these long hours regularly and it was very hard days too. Like I was doing a lot of hard work. There were some days where I wasn't doing hurry up and wait. It was a show up. And for the whole, like, it was a 12-hour shift, but for 10 hours of it, I'm literally running heavy 90-pound cables. So, like, it wasn't that I wasn't weak or strong or anything like that. I was able to do, like, I was able to lift some heavy equipment because that's all I was doing. But, like, I was never in good shape. Like, it was just me working. So eventually, after, I had a lot of off time. Like one of the things working in the film industry was there's all these highs and lows of the industry being 1 week you could be working all week. Next week you could be working 3 days. The following week you could be working 7 days. The week after that you could be working 1 day. Like it was just all over the place scheduling wise. So luckily we were paid weekly and like I was being paid on a high rate. So I wasn't always worried, but it still was one of those things that it was never consistent. But when there were times where I was just going hard, where I go weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, like working, I would then crash really hard.
And like on the weekends when I did have days off, because I was working these long hours and carrying this heavy equipment, my entire body couldn't move half the time. Like I'd hit the weekend and literally my whole day would, and I'd end up spending more time watching TV or playing video games. So eventually it turned into something that I needed to change. I needed to stop sitting around and doing nothing. So near the last 2 years of me working in the film industry, that's when I really was like, "Okay, I'm done with this. I can't just sit around and play video games," especially when I had all this free time, especially when I had the free days, the days where I wasn't doing anything. And because there would be months sometimes or weeks where I wouldn't be working, I spent all this time doing nothing. I was just watching TV and playing video games. I was just waiting for it to come back, waiting for the job to come back because I knew it would. That was the thing. Like, even though the job wasn't there, I was living so comfortably in these uncomfortable situations. And that was the biggest thing that I had to realize, that if I'm living this comfortably, why am I not doing anything with this time? I'm way too comfortable. So eventually I did just start exercising. I started going to the gym. The building I was living in had a little gym, and I did it every day. Just went every single day, no matter what. I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. If I have free time, I'm going down. Like, and I was trying to get my roommate at the time to also join me, and was able to a little bit, but he didn't come down with me. We did it at separate times sometimes. My roommate at the time had a job that already was able to, was more consistent than me in the same industry. Mostly because my roommate was working for like Hallmark movies, and that was just the consistency. And they're always busy and they're always making things. But it worked in the office of it, so there was always projects on the go and being able to cycle through. But for me, I didn't want to go work on those. I hated them. And most of the time I got paid more working on the bigger projects. So I was more focused on those bigger projects and working on those bigger things because they were more fun to me. They were more interested and more interesting. And I also just didn't know how to network well enough in those situations. I was just very shy and my confidence just wasn't there. And that was the big thing too, is I needed to work on that, building some confidence and taking it to the next level and growing as a person. So when I started going to the gym, that's where I really started a self-improvement journey, where I was really starting to learn more about how to better myself, be more confident, more comfortable in who I am. And it was good because after that, like I started doing that, I didn't stop going to the gym. Eventually I got sick, and it's always been this, and I find this, it happens all the time. And even now, but I've, continued, I still try to work out and I'm still working out. And the biggest thing I've noticed was when I get sick, it puts me out for a week or two, and then I finally get back. But I've always changed my routine at this point. It's always been, okay, I've been doing this same routine for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or 2 months now. And then I get sick, and then I'm like, okay, well, now it's time to change. So it's kind of interesting how this is all what's brought me to grow and start going to the gym more and started exercising. And so I was always just doing body weight. So then I got into calisthenics and was really interested in calisthenics. And that was what I focused on, was doing these calisthenics. And this all had to do with, I had to do this to get to me wanting to continue to just grow and understand more of what I needed to do. So it turned into so much more just me starting to do that. I was able to start growing. I started changing my life around and starting to be able to see what's really possible as someone for myself and growing who I wanted to be. And so I started spending more time making videos and film again. I got really into that and was trying to make movies and made a movie. And it, again, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is, I've always wanted to plan. I always try to plan out how to make a movie, and I spend all this time doing it. But when I finally got back into video editing, which was last year, back in June, after I had to deal with all this and was started working out, was actually changing a lot of with my life, was try doing sales and doing sales calls. I eventually came down and saw myself getting back into video editing. And getting back into it changed my perspective once again. It brought me back to realizing that, I didn't have these things or was going after anything. I was still struggling to find how I could go about what I wanted to do and live a life that I wanted to live. And I'm still learning that. And that's the big thing is I'm still going to be learning that. It's going to be a constant thing that I will be learning. But I've gone so far in that time of like getting started in content creation, making those videos as a kid to where I am now, where I'm running a community of people who are also doing video editing, whether that's building it for social media, which is still something I'm learning a lot about. I'm very new to social media. YouTube, I've spent lots of time making content for, but I never understood it. I never got very far. The furthest I got was getting to 175 subscribers, I think. That's the furthest I've ever gone in growing a YouTube channel. And I wasn't very consistent. The videos I made weren't very interesting. They weren't very unique. It was just me talking about stuff, and I never did anything to try and learn how I could do better. But now finding myself getting into this growth mindset and becoming someone who is always learning and very open to learning, that's really where everything changes, is being able to grow and learn. So taking that time to sit down and figure out, okay, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And evaluating and seeing how my journey to get to this point, how I did have points where I was evaluating, is this really all I'm going to do? Am I really just going to sit here all day and watch TV or play video games? So once I stopped doing that, I do not really play video games at all. I'll pick it up every once in a while at this point. But now most of what I do is work or trying to figure out something or trying to learn something new. And with content creation, one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about is this podcast. This podcast has the potential of doing something I don't even think I can comprehend yet. I have dreams, I have ideas of what it could be, but I do not know what this podcast could do, where this could go. There's a lot that could be desired, and it's very interesting to see where this could go, who I'll get to meet, and what else we can do with this. So I see myself really taking this a step further. It's crazy to think that it's been a decade being a video editor, content creator, whatever, trying these different things, filmmaker. A decade of making videos in some sort of fashion or medium. I've seen so much that's been possible with it. I see people actively succeeding in it. And one of the coolest parts about being a community manager for Shapers University and even with the Creator Collective and what we're trying to do with it, I'm so excited to see people get to where they can and also still be able to continue to grow. There is so much that's pretty cool about this, and everyone who's able to join and who wants to be a part of this community, that's the best thing for it. We're all growing. We're all going to be becoming better people, and we all have a journey, and we all start somewhere. And if we can be part of those journeys and help each other out, yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about Shapers University as a community, finding different ways to make it better. But not only that, then trying to use things like the Creator Collective as an opportunity to push each other as entrepreneurs and people who are trying to create something of ourselves. Because I really didn't think I could do it. I didn't really think I'd be where I am now. I didn't think I could be that type of person. I never thought that was who I was. But it's become who I am. And that's why I wanted to share this story with you and share with you what I've gotten to do in the past decade as someone who created content since he was 14 and hasn't seen success yet. which is an interesting thing to look at because either it could be it's not meant for me, or what it really is I just have to keep going and it's not my time to shine yet. It's only been recently when I've realized that this is really something I'm interested in doing and I'd like to see this go further. And creating content is a lot of fun for me, no matter what it is. Breaking down or taking a clip of a podcast episode and having some fun, making a cool little video out of it is probably one of the coolest things. I've had a lot of fun this last week working on creating clips for last week's episode and getting to also see what people have been able to do just from the community alone. So if this is something you are truly interested in, if you want to be a part of a community of like-minded individuals who are actively going after this, growing yourselves, becoming better people, learning a skill like at video editing, trying to build a business, then join Shapers University and join the Creator Collective. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the podcast. And I really hope you can come back and I'll see you in the next episode.
Welcome to the gathering of digital warriors and online trailblazers, where you are the visionary, the one who sees opportunities where others see obstacles. Each morning, you rise with a mission, not to exist, but to excel in the online world. You are not here to follow trends. You are here to set them. Together in the Creator Collective, we don't just adapt to the digital age, we lead it. Welcome to the Creator Collective podcast.